Yo, 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 Sretan Patak, happy Friday. I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, and this is 5 Question Friday. Every Friday at 5 o'clock Croatia time, answer 5 questions from people who have sent them in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, expatinCroatia.com, email, our consulting sessions, and people who communicate to them, communicate them to us, I totally messed that up, through interpretive dance. It's Friday. I have 5 great questions for you. But before we get started, as usual, I'm going to tell you some other stuff. The weather is garbage. Is it Yugo today? Is it Yujino? I have no idea. All I know is there is this garbage wind that is blowing around, and it's just making us all feel a little nutso. So I'm in sweat, so I can go into full laze mode after this. I'm pretty excited about it. So, what else I want to tell you? We put out a story, a post in January. We were doing this, announcing this project where anyone who wanted to start a business in Croatia, had an idea or an investment, they could apply to be a part of this project where they can join a call with a bunch of other professionals and entrepreneurs and then get feedback on their idea. So like Shark Tank, but but not like the TV version, like a really productive version so that we can bring more people to Croatia who are going to open up businesses. That was the idea behind it. So we've had 2 of those panels so far. We had the second one this past week. So there was a lovely woman from who actually lived in Croatia for half of her life, and then moved to New Zealand, and she's planning to move back this year, and she has a business plan in place. And so I was on the call with another professional. We were kind of going through her business plan, her concept, and it was just so wonderful. I love stuff like that. I love entrepreneurship. I've made that pretty abundantly clear, but it was wonderful to see, this woman who's Croatian, who's returning back to the country after, 15, 20 years and wishes to start a business here. So I'm really happy that we could, kind of help her on that journey. She's already done a ton. She already knows a lot, and we were able to kind of supplement and kind of guide her on certain things. So that's a really cool project. We still have about 5 more candidates. So I'm excited about that. It's a fun nice little side project that I'm working on that I'm having a great time with. Looks like we have our first question. Do you have a website for jobs in Croatia for UK citizens? I have my appointment at the embassy Monday, so I'm hoping to be granted citizenship sometime in the next year. Well, that's very exciting. I hope that everything with your appointment goes smoothly. We do have a job guide that is for everybody, no matter where it is that you're from. Ooh, here comes the rain. Can you see everything just got like a little bit darker? So that is a great jobs guide. If you would like that, send us a DM and Cam will get that over to you. It's also pretty easy to find on our website. In fact, if you just Google Find Jobs Croatia, our jobs guide will come up as well. But it has lots of advice. It has all the different sites on where you can go find a job. And in particular, I like to call out Danas Radim because they have a live chat and they will speak to you in English. A few of the job sites have multiple languages, so if you're not fluent in Croatian, that shouldn't be a barrier. Even if there are sites that are only offered in Croatian, you can always use the Chrome browser to just right-click and translate it into whatever your language is, and you'll be able to find jobs. So yeah, of course, getting a job in Croatia is infinitely easier if you have Croatian citizenship, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible, especially these days because Croatia has giant labor shortages and it needs all the workers that it can possibly get. Let's see, we have another question. This summer, I make 3 years that I live in Croatia. After 2 years, I have the right to get the permanent residence. Am I right? So I want to make sure that I clarify something. There is qualifying to apply. That's what it is. So after 5 years of continuous temporary residence, you qualify to apply for long-term residence. So in Croatia, they split permanent residents into 2 different groups. I don't know why. This was a change they made a few years ago. So you have long-term residents and you have permanent residents. Permanent residence is only for spouses of Croatian citizens. The differences are minimal. It's just a nomenclature difference for the most part. So I wouldn't get hung up on that. So to answer your question, After 5 continuous years, you qualify to apply for long-term residence. Whether you're granted, you don't have a right to it. So that's why I wanted to make sure that I made that clarification. You don't have a right to long-term residence. You have the right to apply. You qualify to apply, but you have to give them everything that they're asking for you to be granted that. So that's great that you're only 2 years away. Keep on trucking. So we have a few different guides on applying for long-term as well as permanent residence on our site. If you need any of those, send us a DM and Cam will get it over to you. Ooh, lots of questions up top today. I'm getting married to my girlfriend soon. Can I invite my family to Croatia after we marry, and for how long can they stay? Well, I don't know the nationalities of your family, so I have to speak generally. But first, congratulations on your nuptial. That's super exciting. Yes, you can invite your family to come to Croatia. Absolutely. So if they don't require a visa to enter Croatia, they can be in Croatia for up to 90 days without the need to get a tourist visa. If they do require to get a visa to enter Croatia, then there are limitations depending on their nationality. So they would have to apply for that visa in advance. If they do need a visa, we do have a guide on our site about how to obtain entry visas for Croatia. Or if they have a Schengen visa, they can get a Schengen visa, and that will also allow them to enter the country. Still, in most cases, that will allow you up to 90 days, but there are certain limitations with certain nationalities. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. Okay, let me scroll back down. Okay, what else I want to tell you? Oh, yeah. So last Friday, I told you about how I've been invited by the Tourist Board of Split to participate in a project. So they're doing, I found out today, 25 interviews with different Croatians and me as the token foreigner, so that they can kind of look at all this data in terms of like how people view Split. And I did my interview today. Last Friday I said it was happening, but I didn't know when it was going to happen. It happened today. It happened at 2:00 this afternoon. So I went over to the facultad here in Split and I was interviewed for an hour. And they asked me all kinds of questions about the soul of Split. Do I feel like the soul of Split has been lost? Can Split get its soul back? How do you view the city? What kind of personality traits would you assign it to? Like, what are the best things about Split? What are the challenges? Have you seen changes happen? What are good areas of focus? And the purpose of this is to shape how Split, the tourist boards, markets Split for tourism. That is the goal of this. And the questions were really interesting because, you know, I have conversations about, I wouldn't necessarily say that we've said, well, yeah, no, we have. We have said the soul of Split before, for sure. And a lot of us do feel like it has been lost. And this is something that, you know, is coming from my Croatian friends. And I'm inclined to agree. I'm not going to say it's completely gone. I don't think it's gone. But I do think that Split is unfortunately no longer for people from Split. It's about tourism and their needs, and that's it. And so today wasn't about focusing on the problems. It was really kind of focusing on kind of bigger picture views so that they can kind of look at all of the inputs from all these different interviews, see what overlaps, and then it's going to feed into this larger project. So it was really honored to be a part of that project. I love Split so very, very, very much, and I'm open to do anything I can to help the city of Split. So I'm honored that I got to do that. Okay, we have one more question. Can I invite my family to come live in Croatia after we marry? I'm from Jordan, by the way. So they cannot come to live here in Croatia and get residence based on you, but they can come to Croatia and get residence based on something else, like prepayment is rent is hard if a visa is required to enter the country, but there's a digital nomad permit. That's an option. There's language study. So we have a guide on the site that has a list of all of the different bases for residence. You can check that out and kind of go through that and see what would apply to your family. They have very strict rules in terms of who can bring their family here based on family reunification. The rules are different depending on whether you're a third country national or you're a Croatian citizen. So we do have a guide on that. Specifically, it's called family reunification. So in the law, they define, okay, if you're a Croatian citizen, these are the people who are considered family members for the purposes of family reunification. And then they do the exact same thing for third country nationals. So if you are curious if you can bring a relative to Croatia, then you can go to expatcroatia.com, search family reunification, and you'll find that guide, or just send us a DM and Cam will send it to you. So it has all the information about that. Great question. Thank you. Okay, what else did I want to tell you guys today? So the other thing, oops, I've lost my stuff. There it is. Yes. So we are starting to conduct some interviews here at Expat in Croatia. We're doing a little bit of research for some services that we're going to be offering in the future. And our first topic that we would like to interview people about is safety in Croatia. And we would like to talk to anybody. Doesn't matter where you're from, but if you live in Croatia and you have thoughts about the safety of Croatia, we would like to hear from you. We're looking for at least about 5 people who are willing to talk to Cam on Zoom for about 15 minutes. It won't be more than that, just to kind of get your feedback. There'll be some specific questions that Cam walks you through. She's going to have that on stories today. But aside from that, if you're interested and you'd like to participate and help us with this project and share your thoughts and experiences, we would love to hear all about it. So just send us a DM or respond to the story that we have that Cam posted. So thank you so much for everyone who helps us out with this research that we're doing. Okay, so next, so I just have like a little personal story that I want to share with you because I'm very often asked about my experience with the Croatian healthcare system here. And for the most part, I've had good experiences. But I had a not so good experience this week, and I wanted to share it. So I've been struggling with a back issue for 4 years, and I've kind of naturally gone through the system of uputnicas and have not gotten really anywhere with it. And so the next step is I was asked by the physio to get an MRI and an ENMG, which I didn't know what an ENMG was. And hindsight being 2020, I should have looked it up before I went and had it. But this past Monday, I had that at Croatia Polyclinica. And I guess I just assumed incorrectly that they were going to tell me what to expect, before they did stuff to me. They did not tell me anything. And then they electrocuted me, and it was real painful. It was very, very painful. And then after they electrocuted me, there was a round where it felt like they were just sticking me with like hot pokers. It really felt like they were melting my skin. They didn't. My skin's still there. There's no marks, but that's what it felt like to me. I have a pretty high pain tolerance. And 2 hours later, this was on my legs, so that's it, the only place they tested. But then 2 hours later, my left arm started to hurt, like really, really bad, like excruciating. Like I couldn't lift, I couldn't turn. It was very painful and scary a bit. And then the next day, it spread to my neck and down on my chest and like down under here. And thankfully, I have a good friend who went to medical school here in Croatia, foreigner, and fought tooth and nail to become a doctor here, became fluent in Croatian, learned it from scratch all the way through C2 level. Amazing, amazing woman. And I called her up and I was like, girl, I don't know what to do. And she was like, Sarah, that is not supposed to happen. That is not supposed to happen. So they clearly messed with something that they should not have messed with. And they also should have explained to you what they were going to do. And I was like, yes, but I also should have done my research. So I'm just sharing this little anecdote in case it's helpful with any of your future experiences, either getting an ENMG or just dealing with Croatian healthcare in general. I did see a question pop up. Let me just scroll a bit so I can see what that is. Hello, I submitted my paperwork for my citizenship through a consulate in Toronto. Both my parents were born in Croatia. It's been over a year with no response. Should I visit Mope and Split to follow up? If you want to follow up, you need to follow up with the Toronto consulate, but waiting more than a year is not unusual. The average is 1 to 2 years. You certainly could try to go to MUP and split, but I don't think they're going to tell you anything because that's not where they're not managing your application. So if you apply at a consulate, they're the ones who are kind of managing that kind of. I'm trying to think of how to explain it. Like my application, I submitted at Split MUP, so I can go to Split MUP and be like, "Hey." But they're honestly, they're not even going to be able to tell me anything about it because Split MUP is not processing the application. It's MUP Zagreb that is processing the application. Now, that also does not mean that you can walk into Split MUP and they're going to tell you anything. So you can, I think I addressed this on like 2 episodes ago. I went into a bit more detail. You could try going to Pitanya at mup.hr, like sending an email to the generic box, although I don't usually see that as going very well. Your first port of call should be the Toronto consulate. Contact them, see what they say. Maybe they'll have something for you, but don't get your hopes up too high. It can be difficult to get information on an application once it's submitted and it's in processing. I'm speaking from personal experience. I'm about to come up on my 2-year anniversary mark. And all the times that myself or my lawyer have been trying to get information, they're just like, it's in process. Well, no duh. Obviously, but like, can you tell me anything more than that? So I would just say be patient, contact the consulate, see what they say. You could send an email to the generic inbox, see what they say. It's not going to do any harm for you to do those 2 things. But I would not start contacting them like every week or every 2 weeks because this is a long process and you're not in the danger zone just yet. 1 year is totally normal. Okay. All righty. Let me scroll back down. All right. What else did I want to tell you? I feel like I had one more thing. Oh, yeah. This is completely unrelated to Croatia. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm going to Helsinki on Sunday for 3 days, and I've never been to Helsinki. My uncle, who I love, 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 and adore from Texas, is going to a sauna conference in Finland. And so since he's on the continent, I'm going up there to meet him. If anyone has any Helsinki recommendations, send them over. Because I don't know anything about Helsinki and I haven't had time to research. I'm kind of just going to show up and be like, I'm here. What do you got for me? But apparently, so my uncle, because he sells and installs saunas for like the last 30 years in Texas, there's a sauna Ferris wheel. Like, what? And I think we're going to go do that. That sounds pretty cool. All right, we have another question. My daughter is volunteering and studying in Croatia in the fall, and her stay will be 95 days. How long should she ensure she can stay? So she cannot stay that long. 95 days is going over. She needs to stay 90 days or less, like, period. She could try and stay 95 days, but she's running the risk of getting caught when she leaves the Schengen area because she's only allowed to stay 90 days in a 180-day period. The fact that she is of Croatian descent does not mean anything. She has to have Croatian citizenship for it to make a difference. So if she's traveling to Croatia on a Canadian passport, then the rules for third country nationals are going to apply. So I would tell her that she should definitely try and reduce her stay. And it's important to understand that any moment that you spend on Schengen soil, Croatia or otherwise, counts as a full day. Even if it's just 1 minute past midnight, it's still considered a full day. So it's important to calculate appropriately because if they catch you overstaying and they choose to penalize you for it, it's usually a 1-year ban and a fine. So it's just not worth it for 5 extra days. So keep that in mind. Thank you, Jerome. I hope to. I'm really excited. I've never been to Scandinavia before, so this is first for me. Okay, so it's time to get into questions now. And the very first, this is actually an update from a question last week. So if you were watching last week, I made a promise to Luke, and I hope Luke is out there somewhere, because I have a more refined answer for you for your question. So just to remind everybody for the context, Luke last week asked, our lawyers are now saying that we need 2 sets of original apostille translated lineage documents, one for her and one for me, her being his wife. The consulate in New York said we need one, but they didn't seem sure. Any advice? So everyone who is 18 and older needs to have their own application with their own set of documents. Period. Period. So they are spouses, and so I can see why there might be an assumption that they can use the same documents. No, it needs to be one set of documents for each person over 18. Why? Because just because people are related does not mean that the same caseworker is going to be handling both applications or all applications for a single family. Case in point. Last week, one of our questions was, my adult son has been approved for citizenship, but I haven't as his mother. Why? Because sometimes they get processed by different people. So in this case, yes, he should have his own set of documents, just like his wife should have her own set of documents. But there's actually a secondary part to this question. So very often the consulate or MOP will ask you to bring 2 copies of your application. And when they say that, they don't mean 2 apostille, legalized, translated copies. They mean your original application and a photocopy of your full application. And that is just because they don't want to do it. That's really all it comes down to. So yes, in this case, Luke and his wife each need their own apostille, legalized, translated copies of the official documents and the applications. Okay. Yeah, covered all that. Now to our official questions for this week. The first one comes from Melanie on the 5-Question Friday form. I'm applying for citizenship through my husband who already has citizenship through descent. My question is regarding a certificate of non-indebtedness to the Republic of Croatia. Can this be done through a građani, or do I have to visit a certain office in Zagreb before my return to the U.S.? Excellent question. And this is a very interesting requirement because in my experience, they only ask for this if you are living in Croatia. They don't ask for this if you were living abroad, or at least I have not seen a case where they have. So I had to provide that. And then I have a client who applied for descent in Zagreb, and he had to provide the certificate of non-indebtedness, which I know because he asked me how to get it. So you get this from the tax administration, which is called Porezna Uprava, according to your place of residence, and you provide your OIB. If you have a company in Croatia, then you would need to provide that OIB too, because you'll need that document for both. And then they will do that for you. However, you can also get it online through ePorezna. So we have a link to the online page where you can get this done. We also have a link to instructions on how to get this document. This is essentially a document that just says you don't have debt. In an ideal world, you would not have to obtain this document on your own. The ministry would just communicate with the tax office or look up in your file or something and see that you don't have debt. But right now, that is not a thing that happens, and you are the one who has to provide that document. So it's pretty straightforward. Next question. This is from Kathy. Kathy, I haven't seen you pop on yet, but I hope you're here. And I know if you're not here right now, I know you'll be on later. Kathy is one of our biggest 5-Question Friday fans, and I had the pleasure of meeting her in Rijeka once. So, finally, I don't think Croatia has corn syrup, so popcorn balls and pecan pie are not happening. What do you use for thickening since cornstarch seems to be non-existent? I have a great answer for you, Kathy, and that is cornstarch is existent. There is cornstarch in Croatia. So I'm going to tell you how to find it. You can purchase it at any supermarket. It goes by at least 3 different names that I was able to find. You can find it in the same part of the supermarket where they have the dried yeast and like the flavored sugar packets and the baking soda and the baking powder. That is where you'll find it. Usually it's in a box. Sometimes it can be in a bag. So the 3 different names that I've seen it as is Gustin, Gusel, and Kukuruzni Shkrub. So the one I buy is the brand, which I've never known how to pronounce it. I've never heard anybody say it. But Dr. Oetker, who's to say? So that one, it's called Gustin or Gustin, and it comes in a yellow box. And yeah, that's the one that I've always bought. Oh, you're welcome, Melanie. Okay, so next one, this is from an anonymous question asker on Facebook. Is it possible to check online for unpaid park or traffic tickets? Yes, yes, you can. So you can review your offenses in two different ways. So both of them are through one section of agrogeny called a precursai. Okay, I butchered that. I did, but this is a difficult word, guys. Um, so it means e-violations, essentially. So if you haven't used agrogeny before, oh my God, bring agrogeny into your life. It is a fantastic tool. So it's an online government services portal, and anybody who has an OIB can get into agrogeny, basically. And there are a lot of different ways that you can access it. You can use it, use your mobile phone account. You can use your bank account. I use my bank account. If you're a Croatian citizen, then there's a card reader and a whole thing, and that way you can get in that way. But there's tons and tons of stuff in there that you can get access to. You can even see the uputnica for like healthcare, everything, any kind of court thing you're involved in will be in there, but also your traffic violations. So you can log in there and see if there's anything there, or if you get a ticket, there's a code on there, and you can use that code just to view that particular violation as well. If you would like the direct link to this section of agrogeny, we can give that to you. Just send us a DM. Okay, so this brings us to our lawyer tip of the week. Da, da, da. All right, so follow Croatia's rules to the best of your ability. As foreigners, you may feel disconnected from the consequences of breaking the law, but the consequences of going against the law or lying to the government are very real. Many foreigners break Croatian law for a variety of reasons. They don't know the rules, they assume things work the same way they do in their home country, they disagree with the rules, so they don't think they should be followed. They get their information from the wrong places, like friends, acquaintances, or Facebook groups, or many times passed around anecdotes. They want to do everything they can to stay in the country, and because Croatians tell them it's okay to do it. It can feel impossible to follow the law 100%. Nobody can, no matter where they live. However, if you are living in Croatia, make sure to inform yourself as much as possible to avoid unnecessary risks. If you decide to take a legal risk, make sure you know and understand the consequences. And do not blame Croatia if you get caught. Yeah. Like, it's impossible to know all the rules. It is. But you can inform yourself. And if you're not sure, go and seek out the answer if you think that it is going to create some kind of legal risk. Just be comfortable with that decision. If you decide to take that risk and it doesn't work out and you get in trouble and there are consequences, you got to own that. It's not Croatia's fault because you broke the law. So just please keep that in mind. And no, I'm going to keep that tangent inside my head for now. Okay. So our next question is an anonymous one from Instagram. Do people live on the islands year round, and would it be easy to find a job? So there are people that live on the islands year round, but it's a small fraction of the number of people that are on the islands during season. Okay. So for example, I was just on Island Susak. It has 80 to 100 year-round residents, but the population blooms to between 50,000 and 100,000 people during summer because of season. So all of the islands are like this. There are a lot of people, a lot of Croatians for that matter, but also a lot of Europeans mostly that own homes on these islands, and they only visit them during summer. So they are tourists, but they're not like typical tourists who have never been to Croatia before. They're just coming here on vacation. They actually do have a home there. So because of that, that means that there are substantially less things on offer during the off season than there are during season. There are also fewer buses, there are fewer ferries. Just in general, everything is reduced during winter, which is another reason why there are a lot of people who don't live there year round. You really got to be invested in the island to stay there in the winter time. So in terms of, okay, what do people do on the island for work? All right. So many work in tourism. So they rent out accommodation, they have shops, they have cafes or restaurants. Some offer excursions, tours, that kind of thing. Or maybe they do a regular job, but the options are severely limited on the island. So a lot of people are retired or they don't work for some other reason. If you're super lucky, you work for a company remotely, although that's not tremendously common. It depends on a lot. Like again, I was on Susac and not a lot of people work there. They don't. Um, so it's going to vary a lot person to person, island to island, because it is quite challenging to get a job in winter because there's just not a whole lot of things to do and most everything is closed. So it can be very, very quiet. So it's not impossible to find a job on an island, but it's much easier during season rather than off season. So I would keep that in mind. Now, we have an article, I think it's in our blog schedule. I think we're going to share it sometime soon. But it's reasons why living on a Croatian island is not the dream you think it is. And that's not to me, I know it sounds clickbaity. I didn't mean it to be that way. I meant it to mean what it means. Like, living on a Croatian island, I don't want it to make, on the surface, that can make it sound like it's horrible. It's not horrible. Living on an island in Croatia is like, oh my God, it's gorgeous. But there are some very big realities that you have to understand. It's not like, it's not paradise. There are challenges with living on an island. You don't have access to, here's a great example. Great example. Again, Susac. Let's just focus on that island because it's a very accurate representation. Not all islands are created equal, but a lot of them have, most of them have the same struggles. So my friend fell off a roof and hurt her foot, and it was 4 hours before an ambulance boat could come and get her. And another one of her friends, he had a very serious health thing happen to him, and which was far worse. And still, more than 4 hours they had to wait. They don't have a helicopter pad. So, like, Island Broch has a helicopter pad. So you can be helicoptered to the mainland to a hospital. They don't have a helicopter pad on Susac, and not all islands do have a helicopter pad. So they have to wait for an ambulance boat to come and pick them up, you know? So the ambulance boat takes them to Kirk, and then they get an ambulance, and then they have to drive to Rijeka to go to the hospital. So it's important to keep that in mind, and I especially want to emphasize this for people who are older and have health concerns, that you will not necessarily, again, Susac does not have a doctor. Does not have a doctor. They have a nurse and they have a massage therapist. So just be aware that there are, if you do decide you want to live in an island, more power to you. I support you. Support you. Just understand that there are a lot of pieces to that picture, and this article that we wrote, that's what its intention is to really provide some balance to that idea of paradise. So if you would like that article, send us a DM and Cam will get it over to you. Okay, so this is the last question. This is from Michael on the 5 Question Friday forum. After living here for a year, my wife and I were finally able to move our dogs over. But when we went to get them registered and get their EU pet passport to travel around Europe, we were told by our vet that even though we have residence, those were only given to Croatian citizens. Is this correct? No, it's not correct. You do not have to be a Croatian citizen to get a pet passport for your pet. Not at all. In fact, where did I get a pet passport for Sam? Well, I guess it was here. So yeah, no, you don't have to do that. So they are not informed on that. So you can go to any vet and get a pet passport. It's just a little paper thing that has the EU thing on the front, and that's where they track all the records so that you can take your pet into different countries. So it's easy, free. It's not that big a deal. I feel like there's a story I wanted to tell you here, but now I'm not quite remembering what it is. Um, yeah, I said tell story of Sam. Sam was my cat that I had, Sam Houston. I had him for 6 years before he died. And now I don't know what I was going to tell you about that. But he had a pet passport. The vet probably just doesn't know any better. So I wouldn't come down on them for it. I think that there are still people in Croatia who are not used to dealing with foreigners, and so they make a lot of assumptions about what foreigners can and can't do without knowing exactly what the rules are. It's just kind of the nature of things. We do have a guide on this. We have a pet guide that will give you everything you need to know to get started on caring for bringing your pet into Croatia and then caring for your pet. And there's a specific section on pet passports. So if you'd like that, send us a DM and we can send that over to you. Okay. Alrighty. Ooh, there was an ambulance helicopter on Susac last week. They landed. Wow. Um, Amazing. I must have missed that by like a week because I was having a conversation with some locals about it. They apparently are intending to build a helicopter pad on Susac, but they're trying to figure out where it's going to go because there's just only so many places to put it. That must have been a real serious issue if they were willing to land there. Yeah. I'm trying to like imagine where that would even have been. But how's that? Thank you for sharing that. All right, guys. Katie Glass! Hey! Oh, it's so nice to see you here. I've been hearing your name mentioned by Kim lately, and I'm glad to hear that looks like you might be coming back. So thank you so much for being here on this 5 Question Friday. And if you have any questions that you'd like to see answered, send us a DM, put a comment in the replay, and maybe we will answer it on a future episode. So on Sunday, very early, I'm off to Split Airport to go to Helsinki for a few days to go see my uncle, and then I'm back on Wednesday. It is super, super quick. And then I will be back here in Split next Friday. And I'm hoping, well, I don't want to jinx myself, but next weekend, it looks like it's supposed to be 28 and sunny. So I might finally be able to do something outside again. Because every Friday, the weather just turns. And it's like, no, Sarah, today's not the day. But fingers crossed. Question from Andy. Do you have any articles on Croatian citizens moving back from the U.S.? Anything on taking my belongings to Croatia? And, we have all those things. All those things. We have a guide specifically for Croatian diaspora who are moving to Croatia. That one's called repatriation, although Cam and I were having a chat this past week about how we're going to change the title of that because repatriation doesn't quite translate for everybody. So yes, we do have that. It's kind of like a hit list of like all the things you should consider before moving back. But then we also have a separate guide on all the taxes that you might pay in Croatia. So we have that as well. And then we have individual guides like on pretty much all the different topics that you could need, registering your address, getting an osobna kartica, taxes, real estate, finding someplace to live, all of those things. So send us a DM. Let us know what it is that you're looking for, and we can point you in the right direction. Oh, okay. I understand it's only 5 Question Friday, but might you talk for a bit about what it's like to be a U.S. expat living there full time, paying taxes to both USA and Croatia? It bites. It's funny you asked me this question this week because I just started working on my U.S. taxes for 2023. This past week, I filed my extension so that I have until October because I never do it on time. Never, ever, 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 ever. I mean, it's hard to do it on time because the Croatian report for my company doesn't come out until April 30th. So that's the earliest that I could even start working on it because I have to have that for my Croatian taxes. But it stinks. It stinks. Now I'm in a not unique situation. I don't want to say that. I'm not special. But I'd say that if you're an American here and you do not have a business, it is a different experience than when you do have a business in the eyes of the U.S. tax authority. Um, so, for example, well, let me talk about like the normal ways. Let's just talk about individually first, and then I'll talk about the business. So, individually, you do have to report your income to both places, to both the US and Croatia. Now, just because you have income and you report it to Croatia does not necessarily mean that you have to pay tax. Like Croatia does not have a double taxation treaty in place with the United States. It's been signed, it has not been ratified. It could be a decade before that happens. But and that wouldn't impact individuals anyways because it's actually meant for business people. But in reality, it's not a true double tax. So the reason I say that is because Croatia takes into consideration the tax that you pay abroad. So you report all of that. And then in most cases, I cannot say across the board, you should definitely talk to a tax advisor if you have foreign income that you need to report to Croatia. But in most cases, they will take that into consideration. So if what you pay in the US is higher than what Croatia would charge you, then Croatia won't charge you anything. If what Croatia wants to charge you is higher than what the US is charging you, then they'll ask you to pay, not ask you, they will make you pay the difference or request that you pay the difference. So it's not a true double tax in that sense. And from the American side, there is the the foreign tax exclusion and the foreign tax credit. Those are two different things, and you can't have both. You can only have one of those. So you have to decide which one is better in your situation. And you qualify to be a non-resident, I believe, once you've been abroad for like 335 days. There's two things. There's like a bona fide residence test, and there's two different qualifiers. So you have to have one of the qualifiers to be able to be a non-resident in the United States eyes, and then to get access to the foreign income tax exclusion or credit. I dislike that every year I have to report every single foreign bank account that I have. That's the F bar. If you're not familiar with the F bar as a U.S. citizen living abroad, get familiar. There are consequences to not submitting that. So that's a pain. So I have to list all of my bank accounts, which would be like I have a personal bank account, I have a business bank account, and then I have my pension, my Croatian pension. Those are all considered to be bank accounts. So I have to put the bank, I have to put the account number, and I have to put the highest balance for that year. So I have to go through every bank statement for those accounts, although the pension one's non-traditional, that balance just grows. And I have to put the highest balance, and that is just invasive. And it needs to match what they already know about you. So whenever you open up a bank account outside of Croatia, the banks have to give you IRS paperwork to fill out because they have to report you to the US government, which is insane that is something that they're able to do. That is FATCA. That got implemented, I think, when I was living in the Netherlands more than 10 years ago. And the way that they get away with it is essentially the US says, look, if we find out that you have a U.S. citizen with a bank account at your bank and you didn't tell us about it, the next time you try and transfer money through the U.S., we will freeze it. That is how they enforce banks around the world to report Americans to the U.S. government. So every time I've opened a bank account in Croatia, I've had to sit there and fill out an hour's worth of IRS paperwork and watch the Croatian behind the counter just like try and figure it out because why would they know how to do this, you know? So that's a not nice thing to have to deal with. Now, the business side, which if the double taxation treaty actually got ratified, it would impact me. I would not have to pay taxes on my Croatian business to America, which it is insane to me that I have to do that. I report every detail of my Croatian business to them, and I have to pay personal income tax on the profit of my Croatian business. I don't collect that money. And I said that to the accountant last year. I was like, so what happens in a magical fairyland if my business makes €1 million in profit one year. I have to pay personal income tax on that, even though I'm not getting that in my bank account. Yeah. It's just stupid. It's stupid. And like in perpetuity, I mean, every year I have to pay taxes to the US government, and I don't live there. I haven't lived there in 12 years. They have nothing to do with the income I make in Croatia. And I'm like, I only make Croatian income. I do not make income in the US anymore. I really tried to financially separate myself to make things simpler, but it's a burden. I mean, I know I'm not being positive about it, but I don't have anything positive to say about it. Being a U.S. citizen, paying tax in Croatia, I have nothing positive to say about that. I get really angry every year, and whenever I have to do my taxes, and there's no way to stop the bleeding. The only way to stop the bleeding is to give up my U.S. citizenship. Or just, I don't know, become so wealthy that I can hire a bunch of lawyers who can tangle things up because, they're the ones who can prevent having to pay all these taxes. But like little people like us, like it's just, I know I know a guy who so the rule is about reporting your foreign businesses is you have to own more than 51%, I think. And I own 100% of my company, which is why I have to go through this garbage. But I have an American friend, and he put the business in his wife's name, his Croatian wife's name, so that way he doesn't have to go through this because they have a trusting relationship. And I'm like, that's the only way to get around it. Well, so yeah, those are my thoughts. I've now gone on a very, very long tangent about that. Do you know why the treaty hasn't been ratified? Uh, yes, I do. I mean, I can tell you what I know. Just because this is something that I was told does not mean that it's actually what's happening behind the scenes. Um, I was at a meet and greet with the new U.S. ambassador to Croatia, Natalie Reyes. She's lovely. She came to Split for a meet and greet a couple weeks ago, and we asked about this. And then I spoke with her privately about it because I thought it was the Senate that was tying it up because you have to have 2/3 majority in the Senate to approve tax treaties. And as you probably know, the U.S. Senate is not big on agreeing. So, I thought that was it. But she actually said it's the Treasury. The Treasury is the one that's holding it up. And they recently ratified the tax treaty with Chile, and she thought that Croatia would happen at the same time, but it didn't. So this is something she's going to try and work on. But I said, the last estimate I heard was 10 years. And she's like, yeah, that's probably right. But that tax treaty is not a totalization treaty. It's only for people who have businesses on either side of the ocean. She is going to try and start work on a totalization treaty, which would, impact Social Security and, kind of regular people. But that would mean that you would pay tax in one place or the other. It would, and it based on residence. It wouldn't necessarily mean that you just pay taxes in the States and not here. Like that's the idea behind these tax treaties is that you pay it where you live, generally speaking. And you have to be a tax resident, which usually kicks in after 183 days. Okay, let me see if there's any other comments or questions as I scroll down. Oh, there's another question about the tax treaty being signed, and God knows the U.S. and yeah, they cannot get anything done, nothing productive at least. What is that type of treaty called? I don't know how. Well, the totalization treaty is a treaty that is like in total. I don't know that that's the best way to explain it, but it's more holistic. It covers a lot of stuff. I don't know. I can't remember how they're calling this current one that we're looking at. They just always refer to it as a double taxation treaty, but it's focused on businesses. Okay. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed my America and the IRS sucks because they make me pay tax for a country I don't live in rent. That is a button, and you pushed it, and then I just exploded. So, yeah, you're welcome. So that's it. Unless anyone wants to get any more questions under the wire, we've done a lot of extra questions today. This has been fun. So, do you know how Croatia compares to other EU countries? Do you mean in terms of like taxes? Is that what you mean? I assume your name Mike, since your handle says they call me. Uh, if we're talking about taxes, yes, we actually have a guide on that. We're very prolific. Okay, you do mean taxes. Okay, so yes, I don't have all of them off the top of my head, but we do have a guide where we compared the tax rates from with Croatia and 10 other EU nations. So we go through all of the different types of taxes. So like payroll taxes, healthcare taxes, income taxes, inheritance tax. What else? Property tax would be another tax. I know I'm missing something. It's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, passive income tax, because usually that's a different tax rate. So we have all of those different tax rates. Distributions. So like if you take distributions from your company, that is also taxed separately. So I would say Croatia is pretty reasonable, I have to say, in terms of their taxes. That really the two taxes that people complain about the most in Croatia is VAT, which is 25%. So VAT stands for value added tax. In Croatia, it's called PDV, and that is added to pretty much all purchases. There are some exceptions. So basically, almost everything is increased by 25%, and that's hefty. That is one of the largest in the EU. I think the only one that's higher might be Hungary at 26%. So that's pretty hefty. And then the other thing people complain about is what we call doprinosi, which is contributions on salary. So let's say that you are paying somebody €1,000, like net, that's what they're getting on their account. What they do not see, what your employee does not see, is that there's at least like probably 40% of tax that's on top of that is the obligation of the employer. And that's for healthcare, pension, and then tax. So employee never sees that. They get their money and that's it. So it's 40% at like the bare minimum, but it varies. And the more someone gets paid, the higher the percentage could be, so it could actually go up to 60%. So it stinks because you want to pay your employees more. I would like to think people would want to pay their employees more. But the more you pay them, the larger percentage of tax that you have to pay, and it's already so hefty. So it can be difficult for small businesses to pay people more because of the cost of the taxes. Now, one tax that is actually quite low in Croatia is the distribution tax. So if you're an owner and you want to take money out of your company, it's only taxed, I think, at like 10% or something. So that is considered, that is one of the lowest, if not the lowest in Europe. So Mike, if you would like that guide on the tax comparison between other EU countries, send us a DM and my colleague Cam will get that over to you. Okay, so okay. I'm sort of surprised that given the tax situation, you still find it worth it to be in Croatia, but apparently it's that great. It is that great, and it is worth it to be in Croatia. I'm not going to let U.S. tax policies drive me back to the States. No friggin' way. No way. No way. I have never had a doubt I am in the place I'm supposed to be. America is not for me. Now, I know I try and be diplomatic and dance around this topic sometimes because I don't want people to think that I don't know, going too far. But like, come on, man. The whole point of what I'm doing here right now is to educate you about Croatia because I love Croatia and this is a special place and this is where I live. I don't live in America and I'm not obligated to live there. And my mama may have crapped me out on American soil, but I don't identify with that place. I identify with this place. Like I feel at home here. And whenever I go back to the States to visit, I do not feel comfortable. I don't. I feel like an alien. I feel like I don't belong. I feel like and the longer I'm gone, the harder it is to go back because I feel like I'm not even speaking the same language. Because now I've lived in this completely different universe for so long. And it can be difficult to connect with people. And so a lot of times I just am very quiet as I can possibly be, because I know that there are things about my life that I can try and describe to people at home who've never been here and never lived abroad, but they're not going to understand. Just like there are struggles that people in America have now that I can't understand because I'm not living it. You know, we had some pretty big news today in the US, which I'm not going to talk about. Um, and it was just like, oh, okay. But I just go back about my day. But that's, if I were living in the States, I wouldn't have that privilege. So I recognize that. I want to be upfront that I hope it's clear that I live here because this is the right place for me, but also I think Croatia is very, very special, and there's no place that's perfect. There's challenges no matter where it is that you go. And I am not saying this very publicly, although I realize I'm saying it publicly right now, but you guys are my special people. I have to be honest, it has crossed my mind that where I've considered giving up my American citizenship. I have, because I don't want to pay taxes for the rest of my life to a country I don't live in. But I haven't made any decisions on that. And of course, it's contingent on Croatia giving me citizenship here, so who knows? Um, but yeah, it's not a black and white situation, and I can't say it's not tough. I have family there, I have friends there, I deeply care about. But yeah, this is a place for me. Hope that was clear. Okay, I think now we're done. Yeah. We talked about a lot today, guys. We really dug in. So if you're just joining us, thank you so much for being here. The episode's over now, but that doesn't mean that you will miss out. So I'm going to post a replay here in a minute, and then you can watch this episode from scratch. Thank you again, everybody, for watching 5 Question Friday and being here with me every Friday. I really, really enjoy this time with you. If you're brand new to Expat Creation, if you're brand new to 5 Question Friday, so glad you found us. I hope to see you next Friday. So that's it for now, and see you later. Bye. Vidimase. Ciao.